Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, tonight the title of the talk is Life, Life After Life, and Eternal Life. And these issues have been of major concern to me, and I've been thinking about them for a long, long time. When I was 16, I started my medical school. Uh, at that time, the pre-med and med were together, and we studied for 6 years, both pre-med and med. So I was 16 years old and went to the university. And the professor said, okay, you are going to have classes in the afternoon and clinical experience in the morning. And it was morning. So you're going to be assigned to go to learn some clinical experience, to have some clinical experience. And I was assigned to the emergency room. So here I am, I go to emergency room. Ambulance comes, actually 3 ambulances come and bring 7 bodies of a family between age, I think, 7, 9, something like that, and 70. All of them have very unconscious, and they have been poisoned by carbon monoxide because it was winter, it was cold, and they had used coal in a room without ventilation. They didn't have knowledge and understanding of these issues, and we were supposed to revive them. So the nurse there said, okay, watch this man and do whatever he does, which was one of the residents or interns. And we tried for a good number of hours, but they were all dead. But it was just an experience. So it was quite an experience and impact. That's the first thing you experience as you want to become a doctor. And you begin to immediately reflect about how life is uncertain and how death is certain. Okay, that reminds me of a story of this man who was walking in the streets and suddenly saw the angel of death looking at him funny. And he got very frightened, and he went to Solomon, King Solomon, and said, oh, king, help me, help me. He said, what's the matter? He said, well, I was walking in the streets of Egypt, Cairo, and I saw the angel of death, and he looked funny at me. I'm afraid that he is, after me. And King Solomon said, I can do many things, but I don't have control over death. And this man said, well, you have control over the wind. He said, yeah. He said, okay, let me go on the wing of the wind and go wherever it takes me. I said, okay. So he rose like that music and went on the wings of wind to India, and was walking in the streets of Delhi And suddenly the angel of death was there. And the angel of death looked at him. I was totally surprised. He said, "What are you doing here?" He said, what are you doing here? And the angel of death said, "Well, this morning God told me, go to Delhi and take so-and-so's life. And I was in Cairo, and I was surprised because I saw you in Cairo. And I thought that there's some mistake has happened in the divine world. So, but I had to obey, so I left. I came to Cairo, and now here you are in Cairo.
In India.
In India. You are here in India. You see, you cannot avoid death. So it's a good idea to understand what is the phenomenon of life and phenomenon of death. And this question came to me to the fullest form when one time when I was practicing psychiatry, a parents of his child came to me and said that we want you to help our child. He has cancer and he's dying. And we don't know what to tell him. We don't know what to do. We don't know how to help him. And the child was about 7, 8 years old. Nice son, nice boy. And I said to him, tell me what's happening, what's going on. He said, I have cancer and I'm going to die. I said, yeah, okay, what do you understand you're going to die? He said, well, they tell me that I'm going to go to heaven, but I don't want to go to heaven. I want to be with my mommy and daddy here. Why should I go to heaven? I said, what else they tell you? And they said that they tell me that I go to heaven and baby Jesus would take care of me. I said, what about that? He said, well, baby Jesus is a baby. He can't take care of me. I need my mommy, you know. And I was looking here. I said, well, that's fascinating, you know. How do you answer a child like that? Intelligent, realistic, you know, is trying to deal with a very fundamental issue, understand a very fundamental issue. The parents didn't know what to say, you know. And then I decided that I'm going to focus on helping children and young people who were facing death. Either themselves were dying, or their parents were dying, or somebody in their family. Or decided that would be a good practice. I did it for about 15, 16 years. So it was a really remarkable experience. And during those years, I began to reflect on how do we understand life and death relationship. You see, that's a very fundamental issue. What is life and what is death, and what's their relationship with each other? And I read many psychological books and many spiritually based books to see how different people have understood this phenomena. And in the course of those studies, I came across a statement in one of the Baha'i writings of the Baha'i faith, which I found it very interesting. And based on that, I created a kind of story, if you wish, And I call this story the mysterious case of the IWs. Okay? Now, what is the mysterious case of IWs? And so usually when people would come to me, young people with their parents and so forth, I would share with them this story. I say, think of life and the beginning of life. The beginning of our lives was in the womb of our mothers. That was when we were conceived and we started our life on this planet. Now imagine if in the womb of our mothers there were tiny little beings living in the womb. We call them the inhabitants of womb, IWs, right? They're little tiny beings. And they live in the womb. They are happy. They go around. They play. They, they swim. They do all kind of activities, hide and seek. And these IWs began to notice that the little baby was growing. And they became fascinated by the little baby. They would check on the little baby every day, and the little baby would change and would develop. They noticed that it's now taking shape as a head, as arms, and as legs, as fingers. And they were really fascinated by the little baby, and they loved it, and they took care of it, and they looked after it, and so forth. And then one day, one of the older IWs was very sad. And the younger IWs said, "What's the matter, older IW?" And he said, "Well, I am thinking about the baby." I said, "What about the baby? It looks very good. Now it looks great. It has everything. Why are you so sad?" He said, "Well, the little baby is going to die." I said, "What do you mean the little baby is going to die?" I said, "Yeah, we have seen before here. These little babies come to the womb. They stay for a while, long time, 9 months. And then they die. And that's why I'm sad." And another IW said, "Yeah, but I understood that there is a world after womb. And they are born into the next world. And the next world is a big world, and there are trees, and there are seas, and mountains, and houses, and all kinds of activities, and sun and moon." And another one who was very skeptical, he said, "Have you seen any of those things?" I said, "No." "Have you been there?" "No." "Has anybody come back to tell you those things?" "No." So I said, face it, this is all make-believe. There is no life after the womb. We die, these babies die, and they're nothing. That's it. That's the end of it. That's it. And another IW said, "But that doesn't make sense. This little baby has come here, and look at him. He has grown this big head, but he's not using it. Has lungs, but he's not breathing. Has eyes, but hasn't opened the eyes. What are these all for if, And they were discussing, is there life after womb or isn't there life after womb? And while they were discussing, there was a womb quake. Like an earthquake, there was a womb quake. Okay. And the womb quake happened, and there was enormous movement and activities and everything, and everybody was frightened. And when the things calmed down, the little baby was gone. So the little baby died from the womb. And then, at the same time, the little baby, of course, was born here. And I would say to the young people that I was counseling, I said, you know, you died from the womb of your mom and came here, right? And they understood that, of course. I said, well, you know, this life also is similar. This world is similar. In this world, we are also IWs. We are inhabitants of the world. You see, we are IWs. And we live in this world. And we have to see what happened in the life in the womb. What happened in the womb was that the little baby, we, developed all the necessary organs and potentials and capacities that would make it possible for us to live in a healthy way in this world. That's why we have a big brain, we have lungs, we have eyes, we can hear, we can see, we can walk, we have hands. All of these, none of these we needed in the womb. We need them in this life. It was for the purpose of living in this world. Now, in this world also we go through a series of births and deaths. Anytime that something is born, at the same time, anytime that we die, we also are born, okay? For example, we die from being children, we are born into adolescence. We die from being single, we are born into being married. We die from one stage and enter into another stage. So death and birth are taking place always at the same time. We die from one state, goes to another state. And the fundamental question is whether we prepare ourselves for these transitions or not. Okay. The fundamental transition of this life, of course, transition from this life to the next life. Okay? What we know about the next life? We know about the next life as much as we knew about this life when we were in the womb. Nothing. Nobody has come back. We haven't been there and come back. We don't have any, there is a barrier. We don't have a connection. We haven't been there. But nevertheless, from evidence, we see that this is the process of existence. Every death and birth is connected. So if that is the case, then we have to ask ourselves, what is it that we have to do in this life in order to be ready for birth into the next life? Okay? In the womb, we knew what we had to do. In the womb, we did two things. We lived in the womb and we prepared for birth into this world. In this life, we have to do the same thing. We have to do two things. First, we have to live this life to the best way possible. We have to make our lives joyful, useful, fruitful, happy. There's no reason not to do it, okay? We should live in this life as well as we could and enjoy it as much as we could. That's our right, and we should do it. At the same time, we have to prepare for the ongoing journey of our life, because we are on a journey of eternity. Now, what is it that is on journey of eternity? That brings us to the dilemma of who we are as human beings. You see, those of you who have experienced the process of death, in other words, those of us who have been with people when they die, is a very remarkable experience. Because when you are with a person who is alive in one moment and then dies in the next moment, something dramatic changes. It happens. Here is at one moment the person is there. At another moment only his body there. The person is not there. And you immediately experience it. It is as though the bird has flown from the cage. Okay? The cage is there, the bird is gone. The bird is gone. It's a very remarkable experience. I think it is a privilege of being with people who die. And I have been with many. And it has been a remarkable experience because it gives you an idea of what is our real self. What is our real self? Our real self is not our bodies. You know, we live in a world now that practically everything is being transplanted. Okay? You can have all kind of transplantations. But also we have all kind of extensions. We have computers and all kind of things that are extension of our brain. We have airplanes that are extension of our feet and our body, and cars, the same thing. We have extension. Our bodies are being extended because our reality, which is called our soul or our psyche or whatever you want to call it, our reality is much greater than our body. And that reality of human being, which in the psychological terms we call it psyche, and psyche means soul, okay? Human soul has certain fundamental powers. What are the main powers of human soul? Well, the main powers of your soul basically are three. One, the power to know. We all want to know. That's the reason that we are here, right? The weather is awful, it's dark, it's cold, it's rainy, but we come together because we want to learn something from each other. Why? Because we as human beings are that kind of being that have to know. That's the reason that every time we are together and say, what's new? What's going on? We turn on the news. Constantly we have to know. All the sciences, discoveries that we do, arts and sciences, they're expression of human quest for knowledge. So one of the fundamental aspects of being human is for us to know. And of all things that we have to know, the most crucial is self-knowledge. Because it is through self-knowledge that we discover the not only the mysteries inherent in ourselves, but mysteries inherent in the whole universe. It is said that the knowledge of self is the same as the knowledge of God, because we are born in the created in the image of God. The other capacity of the soul, human soul, is the capacity to love. It is impossible to be a true human being without love. We all have to, at the same time, love and be loved. Okay? We have to do that. We are constantly searching for love relationships. So, when we are little, we fall in love with ourselves. Then we love with other people. When we love the universe, we fall in love with God, with goodness, with truth, with guns, with cars, with, people go around and say, I love this, I love that constantly, Doesn't matter what. So we have to love. And of course, the quality of our love is related to the object of our love. The same way that the quality of our knowledge is related to the object of our knowledge. What is it that you want to know? And what is it that we want to love? Okay. These are the two capacities of the human soul, to know and to love. And the third human capacity is to will, to decide, to choose. Which is, of course, a very difficult thing. Choice is one of the most difficult challenges for human beings, because we have the choice between good and the opposite of that. And that choice determines how we use our love and how we use our knowledge. So these three human powers of human soul, to know, to love, and to will, shape everything that we do in life. Everything that we do are shaped by these three powers. In other words, if we want to define a human being, we have to define that human being according to the parameters of that person's capacity of knowledge, of love, and the kind of choices that the person makes. Okay? And when you ask people, how do you want to be understood? How do you want to be defined? What you like people to tell about you? We all want to say, yeah, this person is a loving person, is a truthful person, is a kind person. Truthful related to knowledge, kind related to love, right? Is a fair person, is a just person related to the will. That's the way we want to be described. And that's the way we evolve and develop. The greatest figures in human history are those who are possessors of knowledge, of love, and acts of goodness. If you think about those people in human history that we revere and we think they are magnificent, they are the ones, okay? So these three capacities to put together, knowledge, love, and will, they shape our lives. Or put it differently, we shape our lives depending on how we develop our capacities to know, to love, and to will. How we do it. These are the fundamental issues. And these spiritual reservoir of humanity, whether it's Christianity, Buddhism, Islam, Baha'i faith, you will see all of them emphasize the importance of we human beings evolving and developing along these lines. And by doing that, we prepare ourselves for the ongoing journey of life. We go from here to the next level. In other words, if we want to be born in the next life not crippled, we have to prepare ourselves here and develop these qualities and capacities of our true self, which is our soul, along these parameters. When we do that, then the issue of death becomes secondary. Now, interestingly, the process of acquiring knowledge and wisdom, or becoming a loving person, or becoming a just person, or a compassionate person, these, for some people, take a long time. For other people, take a very short time. In other words, these developments are not necessarily the product of long life. We know many people who live very long life, and they are miserable people, awful people, not trustworthy, not loving, not kind, not just, not fair. And we know, I have encountered young people, very young people, even children, 10 years, 12 years, who you will see that they have, especially those who have suffered, they have such a profound degree of wisdom and understanding and compassion and sense of fairness that you marvel at what they do. And that's one of the secrets of suffering. Because suffering helps people to grow and mature in a true way. A true sense of growth takes place in the context of suffering. And that's why indulgence is one of the worst things we can do for our children. If we indulge our children, if we don't let them to experience the challenges of life, which brings with it certain degree of suffering. If we don't do that, we don't do justice to our children. Because our children, as a result of indulgence, they don't have the opportunity to grow. One of the wisdoms of why God has, people who don't believe in spiritual issues and in that whether there is God, they say, well, if God is compassionate, why he created diseases? Or why he brings earthquakes? Or why there are so many difficulties in this? Not realizing that in everything that we experience in this life, there is a profound wisdom. And they are fundamentally focused on helping us to become whole persons, complete persons, evolved persons, to evolve and develop and grow and become complete as possible of individuals. And disease and suffering is one avenue of that process. The fundamental avenue, of course, is the awareness that we have that we are going to die. And this awareness is, people deal with it in a different way. Some people deal with the awareness with saying, I don't want to know. So what they do, they busy themselves. You know, what happens is that the people busy themselves. How they busy themselves? Buddhism, collecting things, drinking, going to excesses, all kind of things that we can do to busy ourselves. Human capacity for self-deception is infinite. We can do all kind of things, So many people do that and become busy with the inconsequential issues, with unimportant issues. Plutarch says, those who are serious about ridiculous matters are ridiculous about serious matters. Okay? And in life, we find many people who are serious about unimportant issues. And when the important issues come, they are not so serious, So that's a very important process that takes place in life, that we welcome challenges put before us by destiny, by process of life, by accidents of life, to learn from them, to understand them, and so forth. Now, if human beings in this life focus on development of their powers of knowledge, knowing, in the process what we do, as we focus on that, what is the fruit of the tree of human knowledge? The fruit of tree of human knowledge is truth, right? We discover truths. Well, of course, we never discover truth completely, but we become more and more knowledgeable. So the fruit of human knowledge becomes scientific truths, scientific facts, also becomes better understanding of ourselves and each other. And when we do that and put our knowledge and truth into practice, the person who puts truth, lives according to principles of truth, becomes truthful, right? So truthfulness, trustworthiness is the outcome of human capacity to know. Love, the ultimate fruit of human love is the capacity to create unity, to unite with another human being, to connect with another human being, with nature, with life, with all existence. This capacity to create unity in the context of diversity is the fundamental fruit of human love, which, of course, when we have unity, we have something that humanity always has been waiting for and we never have got, and that's peace. If you want to have inner peace, you have to have unity between your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions. And if you want to have interpersonal peace, you have to have unity with the other person. If you want to have community peace or national peace, you have to have unity between everybody there, globally, the same thing. So the ultimate outcome of unity, of course, is peace. And therefore, that's why when we study, for example, the writings of the Baha'i faith, we see there's so much emphasis on us become agents of peace, become peacemakers. In a way, we can say that the purpose of human life on this planet is to become peacemaker, peace builder, agent of peace. There's nothing more rewarding than that. Because by focusing on peace, you focus on all things that are good. You focus on compassion, you focus on generosity, you focus on love, you focus on cooperation, on everything. Is a most remarkable process of focusing on what should be the object of life in this world. And it would be fantastic because if human beings, if we, in this time in history, decided that we are going to be agents of peace and decided that we want to create a civilization of peace, most of the suffering that we see in this life would go away. Because most of the suffering in this world is due to the fact that this world is filled with conflict and violence. Conflict and violence create poverty, create malnutrition, create disease. Right now, majority of the thinkers of the world, scientists of the world, are using their sciences and knowledge in the service of instruments of war. Imagine if that amount of knowledge and capacity of mind and the wealth of nations were focused on creating better conditions of life and living, better conditions of health. You just imagine how much suffering that we unduly have in this life would decrease. You know, every day you hear substances that create cancer. Okay, they do it because they want to make money because of that. You know, the whole process would change if we had the civilization of peace. So this is okay. So if you are going to live in this life in a healthy manner, we have to live a life according to the foundations of knowledge and truth seeking, of love, of unity, of peace, and of justice and compassion and service to others. These are the fruits of human capacity to know, to love, and to choose. Okay? Okay. If we do that, something happens that is very, very interesting, because the way that people live determines the way that people die. There is a close relationship between the way we live and the way we die. And if we live in a peaceful way, in a loving way, in a compassionate way, in a fair way, our death usually are much easier than otherwise. Okay? And so if we agree, if we accept the notion that in the same way that our death from the wombs of our mothers was our birth to this life, and our death from the womb of this world is birth to another life, then it becomes necessary to reflect about next life a little bit, even though we really don't understand it and we don't have access to it. But for example, in the Baha'i writings, you know, In the Baha'i faith, there is a notion that one of the ways of connection to the next world is through prayer. Prayer is a very powerful process, and it in a state of deep prayer, our soul begins to take its wings and fly and free itself from some of the difficulties and the awkwardness of this life. In dreams, our soul is free also. In prayer also we induce that state. And one of the prayers, of course, in the Baha'i faith is the obligatory prayer that we say every day. And if you focus on the long obligatory prayer in the Baha'i faith, you will see that there is several statements which talks about not only life after death, but talks about eternal life. What is eternal life? Okay. What does it mean? If we accept that our consciousness, our awareness, our soul, these are all names of the same reality, our self, okay? If we accept that our self is a spiritual entity, which is composed of fundamental capacities of knowledge, love, and will, this reality then, when it's born into the next life, it can continue on an ongoing basis. Why? Well, because there is no limit for these qualities. You see, physical aspect of life is a limit. But thank God that there is a limit. Okay? Can you imagine if we physically could continue to grow? Become bigger and bigger and taller and bigger, and just imagine how awful it would be, okay? It would be awful, right? But the spiritual qualities of human beings, there are no limits to their growth. For example, can you ever say, now I know everything? You can't, right? Can you ever say, now I have loved enough? Okay? No. Or I have been loved enough. No. Because there is no limit to these things. Okay? Or I have been fair enough, or just enough, or compassionate enough. No. These aspects of human beings, which are the essence of being human, they are limitless. They go on and on and on. And the transition from this life to the next life and so forth is a process of expanding greater vistas for ongoing development of human reality on the axis of knowledge, love, and will. The ongoing, never-ending process. And therefore, in the writings of the Baha'i faith, we come across, for example, many times references to words of God. There is not only one word, okay? There are ongoing processes. And we are on this journey of eternity. And therefore, the most fundamental issue is for us to become aware that we are on this journey, become aware that there are certain ways of life here that determines whether we are going to be on ongoing journey or we are going to die to the next world, stillbirth. You know, that could happen. The children, many children in the womb don't come completely to this life, right? Or if they come, they die soon. Or if they come and they don't die, but they are not fully prepared to live in this life. The same thing can happen to us on an ongoing journey. And therefore we have to become conscious of these issues. Anyway, this is a much bigger topic than being discussed in one session, but I think this is this gives a glimpse. You know, I actually wrote the IWs. I wrote a book, a children's book, which is being published right now, and possibly in about a month or so will be out. I'm excited. You know, I asked an artist to make drawings for it, and is a book that is for children of all ages, and and the other aspects of it I have described it in my another book called Psychology of Spirituality. I've dealt with it, but these are some summaries of those topics.